And I think we're live. I don't normally do the whole, go live thing. So let me just double check a couple things and make sure. Yep. My phone just notified me that we are live. So that's good.
Outstanding.
I was expecting an intro here.
Yeah. Normally Jason's on top of all this stuff. Tonight I am hosting. So yeah. Normally I'm the co-host. I just get to sit around and talk. But I will go ahead and introduce myself for those of you that do not know me. I am Chris from Homebrewed Comics, and tonight we'll be talking about branding and why it's important to your book. You know, if you're doing a comic book or a book or really anything in general, if you have a business, it's always good for branding. So I'm going to go over to Drew on this side, and then we'll go down to Jerry, and we'll make a clockwork turn and come back to Dennis at DR Valencia.
So, yeah, hey, I'm Drew. I own a small publishing company called Snowy Works.
Jerry Cooley, Old School Comics.
And Dennis Valencia, DR Valencia Designs, creator of the Celestial Knight.
Sweet. And that is the four of us. We do. I think Jerry from E4 Comics said he's going to try and jump on tonight, but we'll see. So unfortunately, Jason could not make it because he had some family events going on. I believe it's his daughter's birthday. So happy birthday! And we'll kick this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So branding. We'll just jump right in. Normally we have like a whole bunch of banter, right? I'm pretty sure Jason's like the king of the banter, and I think it's a Sunday night. I know a few of us have a few things to do, so I actually prepared a few things because I've been revamping my brand, working on my website, which is on this side of the room, and trying to bring Homebrewed into more of a concise, view. So I want to talk about first books, right? Dennis, you've just put out your first book. Drew, you've got like 35,000 books out. And Mr. Cooley down there, I know you have a few books out as well. Not all of us can have gold bars to fund our book. But I know, Drew, you're there. Me personally, I'm not, but I do have my awesome logo that goes on every single one of my books. And I'm going to talk about logos first because logos are important to branding. People need to know who you are and what you do, right? So when I created Homebrewed Comics, the title was Crit. Never really intended to have more than one book, but I wanted a name for my company that encompassed what we were trying to do. And everything we do is based around the idea of like natural storytelling through Dungeons and Dragons, or other tabletop games, things that required, role playing to tell the stories. And so, homebrewed being a term that's used in most D&D things that are made like customized games. So that's why I went with homebrewed. I know that's also associated a lot with beer. I don't drink, so I found that out later. But homebrewed, if you go to homebrewery.com or if you look up homebrewed D&D, you'll see a lot of stuff there. And every title we have, which I just started releasing, Mr. Wizard and Friends, which is another homebrewed campaign that we did, they all fall under that same category of titles. So that's why I chose homebrewed. And I wanted a logo that spoke to me, and I'm a huge fan of Mortal Kombat. So if you look at my logo, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a lot of Mortal Kombat reference in there, from Mortal Kombat 11, because it's probably one of my favorite Mortal Kombat games. We won't get into that tonight. And that goes on all my books. It's on my website. It's on my background, on my computer, everything. So when you see that logo, you're getting something that was made at a table. That's kind of like my story for my branding, and it goes on my shirts, goes on my hat, which is back there on my light. Dennis has been with me at cons, always wearing my brand. Mm-hmm. coming from music, which some of you guys may or may not know, I was in a band for a long time, and it was always frowned upon wearing your own merchandise, like going to a show and wearing your band's merch. We always used to trade with other bands because we'd run out of t-shirts on the road. And I was like, well, I'm not going to wear my own band's shirt. So I'd take a shirt over to like the merch table and be like, hey, can I trade you a shirt for a shirt? And they would rock ours. We would rock theirs. But in comics, I realized it's completely acceptable to rock your own stuff. And I do it a lot. So that's my take on branding. I'll go more into it later. Drew, you and your books, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have, let's see, you have your own titles, and then you have titles that you do for like Indie Comics Dispatch, right? And
Yep.
you have other kind of conglomerate titles that you work with other creators on. So
Yes.
let's talk a little bit about your brand, because you're unique in that fashion where you have a lot of people working with you.
Yeah. I was trying to kind of act as like an official publisher. So, and I do, like, even to this day, get people giving me submissions and things like that. But when you're talking about the logo, like early on for me, I didn't specifically put my logo on the front of my covers like until this year's round of books, because I was kind of felt like, I don't know, I didn't want to put my brand on the front. I'd want to have that space for the art, or whoever I'm publishing this work, for that artwork. So I'd stick the logo on the back. But I'm still working out this logo thing myself. I'm on my second revision here, and still kind of not happy with it. But I might end up hiring somebody out to help me out. But,
Yeah, I get Instagram messages all the time. Do you want a cool logo? Like every day.
Yeah.
I go through. Actually, Natalie and I were in the car yesterday,
Definitely.
and I always know when they're going to come because I'll get a random friend request on Instagram, like a follower, and I'll go check their page out. And I'm like, cool, it's art related. I'll follow them. Sometimes they're not, spam artists. And 5 seconds after I add them, hey, here we go again.
Yeah.
How are you? Not bad. Do you need a logo or a cool design for your page? Nah, man, I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Yep, I'm a designer. We're good. I spent 4 years and $80,000 on school for that. I'm pretty sure I'm good. And thank you, though. Okay, keep me in mind if you ever need anything. Gotcha. So I have a lot of those in my inbox if you need help.
Yeah.
Mr. Cooley, let's talk about you. End of days.
Yeah. Definitely, man. Well, most of you, well, you probably can't see it. It's got, well, there we go. Old comic book rack.
Yep.
Old school's always been my thing, but my name has pretty much been my brand up to this point. And I found my logo, and that's definitely going to be it. But even my website, Jerry Cooley Art, I've just always looked at it in that old school way of thinking. I mean, the old guys like Jack Kirby, I mean, you didn't know him by Marvel, you knew him by Jack Kirby. I mean, even Todd McFarlane and all those guys, when they jumped off and did Image, they were still, they had their studios in the background, but I mean, name recognition still, to me, to this day, is the big thing. Yeah, I've got a logo, and because it represents everything about comics to me. The old school, you go in there, and the drugstore, the grocery store when you were a kid, man, and the first thing I did, I looked for that rack. I had to find that rack and just pick up those school floppy comics, and man, just the smell of that comic, it just brings back, to this day, it takes me back. But yeah, definitely. My logo is a work in progress. For me, that's just me.
So your brand is like your name, is what you're saying.
Go ahead, Dennis. Oh yeah, definitely. Because I mean, yeah, I'm a creator. But I mean, I draw other things. I do commissions. Hey, anybody wants to hit me up, they can hit me up. I want my work recognized by my name. That's just me.
I'm there with you, except I don't put my name on anything. I've had a few people ask when I was going to put my name on there, and I don't even put my real name in the books. So
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm Christopher Michael. That way, no one can find me. More so, if you Google Christopher Michael, you're not going to find me. You know, that's the great thing. So, I kind of my reasoning for that, for not going with my name, is I feel like my characters are more in my book than I am. Even though I do a lot of the legwork and everything, I wouldn't have a story without my friends.
Gotcha.
So, I think putting my name on it would be like more of an ego thing than it would be on a creative thing. Like, you guys all write your stories and you all have a lot invested in your stories, and I'm over here like, I actively try to kill my friends in combat once a month, and so, you know, the story is more about them surviving me than me writing their stories. So I avoid that. And yes, Jason, Chris Michaels, because everyone loves to call me by some kind of wrestler name.
Nice.
Dennis, sorry for cutting you off.
No, man. I'm kind of in a, you know, I'm in the group of you guys. Like, I consider myself still the rookie. I'm still learning from you guys, and the same thing comes with the logo. I still don't have a logo, and I always I had people approach me and say, "Hey, why don't you have a logo?" And I kept thinking,
Slate Comics.
Well, that was actually two things. And I actually had wrote it down. Was one, logo one is Slate Comics. The second logo is always going to be SSB. And I still don't have my own. And people have said, "Hey, why don't you have your DRV?" And I'm like, it's in the process, or I've done little ones and they didn't work out. But I think in the same vein as Jerry, like we you know, it's about being the artist. I started this as a creator, as an artist, before I went to comics. So for me, it wasn't even thinking logo. It was just getting my name out, like Valencia, DR Valencia, Dr. Valencia, Doc, and all these things kept floating through my head. What am I going to narrow it down to? So it was going to be DRV. It's going to be DRV. I know it's going to be Dr. V, because that's what I was in high school. It's Dr. V. I'm trying to stay away, when I've done logos before, stay away from everything I see. And what I see is all you guys. And what I wanted to do was ones that were very similar. I'm like catching myself saying, "Hey, the guys I work with, wow, my logo's looking similar," and I got to kind of detach from it. But it's so interesting that you said when I was thinking about branding and marketing and all that, you know, I'm still learning from you guys. And I just learned something brand new in the last month that, Chris, you actually, I think, taught me that I didn't even think you taught me. But it was one of those things where I was just like, oh, shit. Like, all this time I was looking at something differently wrong, or looking at it in a different way. And here I did, you know, when I did marketing or branding, when I was working with Jason on the Convictor, you know, I thought I had a pretty good grasp of what I was doing, and learning from that and carrying it to my book. But man, then all these wheels start turning of like, I'm so far behind and I still have so much to learn. You even threw me a curveball when you started out with logo. All right, you know, I'm like, oh damn, I've got a logo. Other than I always make sure it has Slate Comics and SSB on it, and then I'll go from there. And just like you, Jerry, it's in the works. It's been in the works many times, but it's always been getting that name out of, you know, DR Valencia or Dennis or Doc or you name it. So interesting. Good start to the topic, because it really threw me for a loop.
Oh, definitely.
It was kind of my idea, to be honest with you, because we do a lot of these panels, and I want people to understand that we're learning as we go along. You know, none of us are masters of the trade at all. And I think that's what really appealed to all of us when we got in to making comics. You know, I remember looking on Instagram and seeing some of the creators out there and going, okay, I can do this. Right. And then, and I'm not going to speak just about my personal experiences, because I think we all know I just started randomly throwing stuff up, and then I was like, screw it, I'm going to do it. But I see a lot of creators that will see what other people are doing, or seeing like the Kickstarter. And if you just pay, hey, what's up, Pops? If you even look at the state of Kickstarter comics now versus 2 years ago, there are more and more people putting their books out there, because it's like they're seeing that it's good, that it can be done, that it's not as hard. I say that with quotations around, not as hard as we make it out to be. Now, we'll not even go into the headaches of fulfillment and all those things, because that's not the show we're going to run today. But as a person who just went through 6 months of creation and wanting to drive around the country choke holding people until they get work done, Yeah, it's not as easy as we make it seem sometimes. But the reason I said that was I want to go into the SSB logo a little bit because a lot of people don't understand the difference between, say, Homebrewed and Savage Sandbox, or Slate Comics, Savage Sandbox. And Drew and Jerry, you're new to the Savage Sandbox, so we don't really have your books in retail yet. But when we go to retail, right, and that's what really Savage Sandbox is a retail channel, right? So you could go in and you could get Convictor on Kickstarter, but when you go to the store and you see Convictor, like a retail store, you're going to see this. You're going to see the Savage Sandbox logo on it. Just like, my issue 3 here, Savage Sandbox logo, distributed by Savage Sandbox. We're a distributor. We're individual publishers that come together to distribute a retail ready product. So when we're talking about branding, it's easy for me to talk about Savage Sandbox branding because it's one thing, right? You guys are talking about, I'm doing my art, I'm doing my creation, I'm doing my storytelling. I have all these things that go into my brand, right? Heck, Homebrewed Heroes, I've got figures now. I've got stuffed animals. I've got hats. I've got t-shirts. I've got all this stuff for Homebrewed. But for Savage Sandbox, it's really simple. It's a retail ready product, right? We've come together to publish under the same, banner for retail. And I think that's important. We drive home that retail ready product to retailers. What's up, Jerry? To retailers, to, other distribution companies, which I'm working on actively now. And Drew's been getting our stuff onto, digital formats, which, when we started this project, I wasn't thinking digital, but on a retail end, if you can go in and see, oh, wow, these guys are doing well digital, digital does translate, not 100%, but does translate to physical. So that's good. That's good exposure. And I want people, when they see, this logo on a book, right, the Savage Sandbox logo, I want them to know what they're going to get. And, if Jason was here, they definitely know what they're going to get, right? Right. But he can comment, so he can definitely contribute. But they're going to get a group of guys that come together and work for the same goal, right? How many times in chat do we throw something in there and all of us give feedback? Or I'll even talk to Jerry from E4 recently. I'm lettering his book, and I gave him some feedback, and he went back and re-scripted the book. Makes my job a lot harder, Jerry. Thanks. But let me resend the link real quick. Hold on. I saw his comment there. He said he didn't get the link. So, are you sure that link didn't work? Because everybody else is in here.
Yeah. That's the link I use, the one in chat.
Yeah. I'm going to send it directly. Try it again. I just sent it to your Instagram, Jerry. But we work together, and I think even like Dennis said, we're constantly influencing each other. I went to a con with you, and I walked away, and I was like, man, I gotta get some of that stuff. Like you the way you present your product and how you lay things out. I'm still learning that aspect, and I've been doing trade shows and cons for decades. But there's still things to be learned, and I think that's the glory of this group. Is we're learning from each other, we're growing together, and ultimately anybody that you just got to log in with your name. But anyway, anybody that gets into what we're doing is going to be able to understand that we work together. You're going to see a little bit of influence from everybody. You're going to see some. Well, you're going to see Dennis's art on just about everybody's books, because I think Dennis, when he's sleeping, still draws for people. That's why my iPad died.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's going to be the Caspian Curse. It's going to be
Caspian Curse.
You overlooked it. I gotta say, man, that new iPad Pro is glorious.
Is it?
I'm a very happy individual.
Looks huge.
Oh, it is.
It looks gigantic.
I don't normally whip it out on YouTube, but we're gonna do it. This thing is a beast, man. It is a
That's
beast.
awesome.
And I've only been working on it for about a week, but my workflow is a lot easier because of the size of the screen, for one. For two, the processing power on it is just absurd. So I'm able to do more layers. I'm able to do a lot more with it. So I'm really excited about that. I really need to figure out a hack to get Procreate on the Wacom so I can have 24 inches to play with. No pun intended. But if that happens, my workflow will just be ridiculous. So, I wish my wife was on here. My wife actually does branding for businesses. So it's strictly for OnlyFans. I do not have an OnlyFans. Nice. Just for those that might be wondering. No, don't do OnlyFans. But yeah, so Jerry, if you can get in here and hang out with us, because you've got a brand too. You've got books out now. You just actually shipped your Kickstarter. But learning a lot of stuff from my wife and branding, it's good to be concise. And if she's in here, she needs to comment because this is something she does for a living. But I've learned quite a bit from her. She brings small businesses around all the time, and they're always updating their headshots or business cards. We're in a unique business because we can have business cards. Dennis, my business card is my book. I keep a stack of free books around, and I'm like, hey, you want a business card? Here's a book. I need to work on that. I probably need to get business cards because I was very jealous of you being able to hand out something with all your info on it.
Well, so this is the thing I learned from our last con together. I was approaching every con. For me, I was approaching them all wrong. I was trying to make up money. I was trying to make up tables. And then just a simple conversation with you of how these are really about getting my brand out, getting my name out, getting my product out, and getting visibility on it. And that last one that's what I really wanted, and that's what I got done. And it was something where it just changed my mindset and it really relaxed me. It didn't stress out about the numbers and the units and the dollar value, but that brand got out. I was able to, hit there with cards. I'm working on new cards. I've noticed certain cards got me more traction than others. The cards I used this time didn't work as well as the ones that worked at AwesomeCon. What was the difference? The font, the size of my tag on it was bigger at AwesomeCon as opposed to this con. The card, it was just something as simple as the card. But just meeting other people and other people in the industry, and then really taking a step back and pressuring myself. And we've had this conversation before where I'm always in my head. What am I doing wrong? Why am I as successful as that guy? How come I didn't get this many units or this backer or that? I'm constantly, unfortunately, in my head. But the whole thing was really getting that out of the way and understanding what we're doing as far as my brand. And my brand is not only now, used to be me as an artist and getting commissions and getting my name on projects, but now it's Celestial Knight. Getting him visibility, getting that character when they see it and go, that kicks ass, or I like that, or I've seen that before, or you're that guy. That's where I'm kind of leaning more towards now as a brand. I'm sure it'll change in a few years from now. I'm just so curious how you guys, with Drew, because you have so many different books, what is that brand? Like, how do you even center what brand? Jerry, you got that spinner rack. I think, didn't you just break out that spinner rack just a few months ago? Suddenly out of nowhere, that was your logo. And then Chris, I think one of the things I learned from you, it's not just selling your brand as a book and homebrew. And the cool thing about being D&D, you're selling you. And there's so many people that know you, what you're about, your stories, your survived death, your Mr. Chest Day. So that brand isn't just a book and a product. That brand is you as a character or you as an artist. And for me, that's why I knew on my Kickstarter, I really was taken off as me. That's great. It was really taken off for me as a brand. But there's just so many facets to it that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. Sorry, small rant.
No, that's good. That's good. I got Jason, commenting and giving me feedback because I'm hosting for him,
Nice.
But to your point about what we learned at the con, and I'm just going to bounce off you because I did learn some things there too, even about my own brand. You were there. How many times did somebody? I wish I had my Samedi sitting right next to me.
Yeah, that's Samedi's money.
I've got, screw it. We're on live. I gotta grab it. It's right here.
I got mine here too.
So there it is. This guy right here sold more books than I did.
Yeah, right.
Like all I did was I put him out, and honestly, I don't normally put him where he was, but because of the space that I had, I was trying to navigate, and I was like, cool, I'll put him right there. It kind of sticks out a little bit, and then everybody's making a beeline for the cat. I saw people walk. That last guy, he saw the cat from the end of the aisle and just walked straight up to him and was like, I want this. And I was like, oh, well, there's books that go with it. I want all those books. Okay. So I know
Oh,
my
wow.
brand now at cons, at least, what I need to focus on, get the attention with the cat, right? Because your branding is something that's supposed to draw somebody in, and then you're able to sell it. And, I appreciate that, that people buy me that comment, but I like being able to use something that grabs them and then using the charisma, like my excitement, because most of my charisma comes from the excitement I have about my title and everything I'm doing, and using that to push the story. But if you have something that's an eye catcher, and that's really what branding really goes into, is something that catches the eye, something that hooks them real quick, then the rest of it should flow naturally. Especially everybody in here is attached to a title. Drew, like I said, I know you work with a lot of different creators and stuff, but you still have passion behind what you're doing. So no matter if it's Caspian or your horror series or your sci-fi series, these different things that you're putting together, you've got blood, sweat, and tears into it. And once somebody goes, hey, what's this? You can sell it, right? And that's what the branding should be. It's something that just goes, cool, I want to check that out. Or I go back into, like, do you like D&D? That's like my tagline. But I also go back into music. So when I was young and I wanted to check out different bands, I was obsessed with Roadrunner Records. I wanted to get signed to Roadrunner. I'm really glad I didn't, but I was obsessed with Roadrunner, and I checked out every band on Roadrunner Records because I liked one band on there, right? So I want someone to see Savage Sandbox and go, oh, I like this title and this title, so I want to check out every title on that because of the brand, right? That's kind of like my goal for Savage Sandbox personally. And before I go too further, I'm going to let Jerry go because he's wearing a freaking awesome branded Crit t-shirt.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
I'm doing great.
What's up, Jerry?
Really in worse weather than you because it's bright and sunny where you're at.
Yeah,
thunderstorms
it's
and
sunny. Bright and sunny and soon to get dark. So, yes.
So tell us a little bit about what you do to brand, E4, right?
Yeah. What's the question?
You froze like a perfect spot. So we're talking about branding. So your logo for E4. Tell us a little about your logo and why you chose it and what it says about your brand.
So when I first came up with E4 Comics, I wanted it to like represent something. With everything that you always got to find like key things within what it is that you're doing to help you be successful, and I always said to myself that if you could find like the four major things, and I guess the number 4 has always stayed with me because there's 4 brothers, it's about me and 3 of my friends. So it's always like, if you can find like the 4 key things in whatever it is you're doing, you're bound for success. So that's kind of what the E4 stands for. The 4 elements into what it is that you're doing. Find the 4 elements in what you're doing and your brand for success. And I wanted the logo to look cool, but simple enough that people can see it and just be like, oh yeah, that's E4 Comics. Nice, simple, nothing crazy, nothing dramatic, just, wow, it's a pretty nice, simple logo is what I was pretty much looking for when I created the logo. So that's what I use to like brand my thing and like the rules that I kind of like live by, in creating the products under E4 Comics.
And is it just you, or tell us a little bit about your team? Like, do they have say in that, or is it just your idea?
Yeah, like obviously most of everything that I do, I kind of run it by the guys, and they give me the input of what they want to see. Like, for example, in the story, they all give me their idea. They give me their ideas for their characters. For example, like I shared with you, Chris, a couple of characters that I'm working on. Mm-hmm. So basically they came to me. It was just like, hey, this is what I'm looking for in this character. Can you do that? So I obviously run it by with my artist and go, I need like a mixture of these, type of characters with this added to it. and then we create whatever it is we're going to create. So once again, like I said, the fact that the brand runs through 4 people is always like E4 Comics. That's what it's about, us and the brothers. So, and now joining the SSP is kind of like making that brothership even bigger. So God forbid that, there's something I cannot get from my team, there's a bigger team that I can reach out to.
And that's I was saying before, that's what the great thing about the Savage Sandbox. It's not just, you against the world anymore, right? It's like, I'm struggling with something. Let's see who can jump in and help out. And, let's see what Chris is doing. Chris will fix it for us. I've been doing a lot of working in that area to try and so strategically, moving forward, I really want to bring more members in that contribute. Like Drew has been kind of an inspiration for that, because he's got expertise in areas that I didn't with the digital stuff. That was a big deal. Maybe one day we can recruit a web designer, because I still have yet to finish that out, and I'm kicking myself for it every day. But I think it's important with your branding too, not just to represent your product, but yourself as well, and do it well. Because when we're at cons, especially in Baltimore, I'm really excited for this one, because we're all going to be there, and having that, I want to see how they set us up, because I was actually talking to Dan, Bigfoot Knows Karate, and he was asking me about how our placement was, and I'm like, I think we requested to be close to each other, but we have 3 tables. We have 3 Savage Sandbox tables.
That's awesome.
And I was like, as much as I'd love to be next to everybody, I think it would be even better if we had one in the end, one in the center, and then one at the other end. And then people just see that brand everywhere. And one thing that I always live by is, the bigger you look, the bigger people are going to think you are, right? We have 3 tables at a big con like Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Who are these dudes? What are they doing, right? And if we do have a setup like that, I want the same books at every table. I want them to get the same experience from different people, because we all know each other's books so well. It's not hard for me to pitch, Dennis's books or Drew's books, or really any of the books. I was listening to Dennis pitch freaking the horror story of Drew's, and people were just picking it up.
Yeah.
Like it was his own title. So I want to see that go on, and then going to visit other, and like we can kind of switch tables too. But like the one thing that always bugs me about cons is people walk in, they see your stuff, and then they don't get a chance to come back to your table. Well, there's no excuse if we're all down that hallway, and they're like, "Oh man, I meant to pick up this book. I'm going to do it right now." Cool, like.
So when you say at different ends, Chris, do you mean like Savage Sandbox on the first corner, a bunch of people in between, then another Savage Sandbox in the middle, a bunch of people in between, and then another Savage Sandbox at the other end?
That's
or
how
you talking
I
about?
would love it. I know that's not ideal for us to be able to hang out and shoot the shit all day, but business-wise, like when you see multiple booths, you have multiple opportunities to buy. Okay, especially if you got little kids with you and other things going on, they might go, well, let me see what else I see first, and if I don't see anything, then I'll come back. You're relying on them to not see anything first, and then you're hoping they want to walk all the way back down that alley to see you. But it's like that checkout line, right? I think about like Walmart when you go to the checkout line. All those candy bars that are sitting there, they're on the racks elsewhere. But you see them at the end, and you're like, oh, man, I'm about to walk out. Let me grab that. So if we have people in different areas, you don't know where the traffic is really going to direct anyway. You have 3 different opportunities to sell your books. And that's kind of what I would hope to see. We'll see what happens when we get there, because ultimately I don't have the ability to play chess with our tables. But that would be freaking awesome. And then we can kind of rotate. It's like me and Dennis one day at this table, and then maybe it's me and Jason at a table, and then maybe it's me and Jerry or me and Drew. Like somebody can always be at a different table, and every day we can switch it up and just have a fun weekend, because we know at night we're gonna go back to the hotel, we're gonna talk about the day and shoot the shit. So as much as I'd love to see 3 Savage Sandbox tables next to each other, talking about branding and having that brand out there, that speaks volumes, especially if we do really well with the layout of the tables and making them look similar and eye-catching, and people see it and go, oh, I just saw that table. No, I didn't. It's right here. Oh, cool. I like this book. And maybe Jason's pitch on my book will be different than mine, and someone will like it.
Yeah, Chris, that's what I was thinking too. Like, when we, this last con, and I'm talking about your book, Drew's book, and just, my excitement on it's one thing, but I think that would be amazing if I could actually talking about Jason's book, talking about Jerry's book, and then just be like, hey, would you like to meet the creator? Let me walk you right over to their table, get an autograph from them, or, just from my excitement, imagine from their excitement, and vice versa. I think that would be amazing just to get different points of view. And that comes back to that branding of selling yourself. I know a lot of my book that sold was because of me, was because of my passion for it, and me just telling about this story about a character that's been in my brain for 35 years. And when they're hearing that, they're like, wow. And then the energy goes. And that would be amazing if our tables or at like nice spread out amongst the con, where I could actually be like, Drew's book is hilarious. It's about cleaning up after monster attacks. You got to meet this guy. He's right over here. $3, you can't go wrong. Walk him over. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, same. When we're sitting there at the same table and I see somebody talk, like I hear you guys talking about my books, I think that's awesome. Yeah. Because we all know each other's stuff so well. I think even at that con, I think one of the cool things about working at a con with you guys is every time I've been with the group, and I know Drew and Jerry Cooley, you haven't been in the group yet. As far as I think last year was Congregate was the first time we'd all gotten together. But someone would talk about my book, and then I just kind of do a soft handoff, like, oh, well, do you like horror stuff and like Ninja Turtles, or do you like manga and anime? Oh, yeah, I really do. Cool. Check out these books. And then it was like a soft handoff, like, hey, thanks for checking out my stuff. Definitely check out these guys.
Yep.
And then that creator gets to go right into their pitch. And just like you said, if you sell a book and you turn around and say, hey, let's go meet the creator, he's right over here. And then you get to sign that book and make that interaction. Like, I will never forget the con we did where this one kid just bought everything I had. I was like, well, I have he bought every one copy of every book, the Stuff Samedi, a T-shirt, and then he went in and backed the Kickstarter, and then he brings his wife over and she does the same thing, and then and I'm like running out of books, and I'm like, well, I have this like limited edition print I did of book 2 that's no longer in print. Oh, I'll take that. I'm like, you already have book 2. Yeah, but I'll take that too. I'm like, okay, let me see what other stuff I have in here. And like, just
you want my shoe? I got a shoe.
Oh, he shows up.
Sarge.
He has to make the appearance. What's up, Sarge?
Hey, sir. I got about 10 minutes. I got 10 minutes right now. So,
what's going on, dude?
So I had a few minutes. Figured I'd pop in.
So talk to us about branding for Pharaoh's Creative Studio.
Oh, it's about branding? I had no idea.
I know. who made the stuff for tonight?
Damn.
It's that age kicking in.
Nice.
Yeah, I just figured I'd pop on and say hi. You're kicking ass. You don't need me. This is proof you don't need me going forward.
I will say, at least you know how to start them off better than me with like the countdown and all the videos and stuff. No clue.
You guys are doing great. You don't fucking need me. So.
See, that's all Jason has to do for branding is pop in, show his face. Everybody knows it. Everybody's like, okay, cool, Convictor right there.
Yeah. But branding, yeah, that's a thing. So last night I was on Pops, who's in the chat. I was on Pops thing, and somebody actually picked up on branding. They mentioned my last name, about what my last name means, through the Greek culture. And that was the first time that somebody actually grasped that the Pharos and Pharos Creative Studios actually had was like my last name. So that was pretty cool. So that's never happened to me. In the 3 years I've been doing this, like literally no one's ever done that. So that was a pretty big deal. So finally someone got it.
That's still a cool freaking name, Pharaoh.
I know.
I mean, you'd think it would have been obvious, but it wasn't, I guess.
As someone with a last name that's ridiculously hard to pronounce and gets screwed up.
Well, yeah, maybe. I put it in the chat. I don't know if you saw it. I just want to let Drew know that that Chris and I found your gold stash, your gold bar stash at Disney when we were there. We actually have a picture of it.
We were on a ride and there were these stacked gold bars, and he's like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
we purposely took a picture of like a couple of assholes.
I think we took a picture of it too, if I'm not mistaken."
We do. Yeah, I got it. I have it. I was like, yeah, where's this? It's a joke. All right, don't let me interrupt, please. Go ahead and go on. I just figured I'd pop in for a couple minutes and then drop out. I got shit to do, but I'm definitely in the chat. So,
I appreciate
good job,
it.
Chris. You're the new host. I retire. Barrister Studios. It's all you. So,
thank you. One more thing on my plate. Appreciate it.
yeah, because you have enough on your plate, right? You want to do this too?
Yep. I'm. So speaking of, I think after the last that picture I posted of the that I drew the other day.
Yeah.
The feedback I've gotten on the colors and stuff for that, I'm coloring my own book from now on. I'm done.
Yep.
I'm done waiting on other
One
people.
step ahead of me. I'd have sleek color my shit because it looked like fucking Crayola when I did it. So, but we know what that looks like. So,
Yeah, Sleek killed it, dude. But I just don't have I don't want to say patience, but I think that I could just put more stuff out. And I gotta say, funding wise, it's easier to fund if I do it all myself. So someone like Dennis, you can appreciate it. You do all your work. Jerry, you draw and color all your stuff, right? Except for your covers.
He's definitely not
well,
talking to
yeah,
me.
unless I have a guest cover artist.
Yeah, but you do
Yeah,
all your
I
own
do
stuff.
all
Right?
my shit.
Yeah, I think that helps with the
Yeah.
brand too. I was going to go into like the artistic part of the brand since we're comic books, so that kind of like leads me into that. Recently, that's one thing that I really wanted to focus on was the coloring of my books because I'm going into a new chapter, and I've been working on my own coloring skills, like digital coloring, and I was really nervous that my coloring style wouldn't, do well for the brand. So I colored a few pages and did a few things, and I sent them to my guys, and I was like, hey, what do you think? First was like, well, does it save us $2,000 a book? Yeah. Second was like, well, actually, like this, my style is simple, and I'm trying to go very anime, manga, animation style with my coloring because, I really like Robert Nix's style. It's very simple, and he does a kind of like a cartoon style. And they're like, well, the further you get into crit, the more it becomes like a Saturday morning cartoon with violence. So it fits. So I'm pretty pumped to be able to color my own books and do justice to my brand there. And so Drew, I'm going to talk to Drew and Jerry at E4 mainly because you guys write your own books, and then you have artists and other people kind of collaborate on your stuff. So when you're looking at your brand, say, I'll talk to Drew first because your brand is very vast, right? You have a lot of different titles, and as a writer, when you're going into your script, I'm sure you have an idea of what you're looking for. How do you approach it to where, like, what are your ideas for keeping your brand, Snowy Works, and the art that goes with it? Like, how do you combine those, and what's your thoughts on that?
I'll be very honest. I have no plan.
Just winging it, Drew.
Yeah, exactly. I do. I really. It's hard to put words on it because I come up with ideas all the time. Visually, it's not there until I get an artist, and he may or may not have that style I want, but I usually kind of just roll with it, and the story kind of blends with it. I don't know if it's kind of like their, what's that term where you kind of like Stockholm syndrome, but literally just wing it, and it seems to work out. Yeah.
So do you have like a specific style that you like or that you picture, say Caspian, right? Because Caspian, I got to say, he has a very marketable appeal to him. And when I look at your art, I mean, it's great. So when you went in, did you have a specific art style in mind for Caspian, or did you just take like, hey, this guy's cheap, I'll work with him, and just so happens that he's great?
No, I got pretty lucky with a cover artist that he did a cover for me for Future Sci-Fi Tales a few years ago, and I've always wanted to work with him. And he also has kind of a bit an anime, a tad bit of an anime style to him. So that's kind of how that worked out. Wasn't really looking for anything. I wasn't looking for somebody cheap, but I needed somebody that could be consistent and I could work well with. And that's why I wanted to work with this guy.
Because I'm impressed with the art style on there. You know, in the world where we're consistently paying people to do work for us, it's hard to get people that are consistent and consistently good. You know, my experience is, I see the guys getting busier and busier and busier, and then the quality of the work kind of goes down. But that Caspian Porter, the quality, I mean, it's only gone up. So that's impressive.
Yeah, I've been pretty impressed with his work. He's I've been doing this for about 5 years now, and I tend to stick with the same artists and colorists, all this time, just because I know they can deliver, and they'll deliver it when they say they will. So, I don't venture out too much. I have been reaching out to new logo artists and things like that, but it's usually I have my same go-to people.
What about you, Jerry? You have clearly you have a more manga anime style in mind. You recently switched artists, right?
Yeah. So when I came out with the elements, I definitely knew that I wanted an anime manga style art. But I guess because I wasn't an artist myself, just like, English art, there's different styles of manga art. So trying to find the one that I just found more appealing, which I did with my first artist that I enjoyed, his style, I guess you can say, was kind of based more of a Naruto style, art. And I fell in love with that. The boys looked exactly how I wanted them to look and everything. But given the situation that happened with him and I had to let him go, remember you guys were there when I was trying to pick between 3 or 4 artists that I wanted to continue the saga. The sad thing about it is the artist that I have now, I took her out the first round. Yeah, because everyone was drawn to the other artists. That I think the way he did his panels, he drew like an image in the background in between like the panels. So instead of you having like the white lines and everything, it's kind of like you had like an art design in the background of the panels that seep through the lines in between the panels. So it definitely was much more appealing. But the issue that I had, that there was certain aspect of that art that wasn't sitting right with me. So I think it was that I sat down with my wife and I spoke about it and everything, and we started looking back on the artwork, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I didn't give this person a fair chance. I gave her another artwork to do, and it was appealing. And then I started to realize her artwork was more of a Bleach anime style art. So I was going to have to deal with that different aspect of it. And I'm extremely happy that I did, because not only do I like her artwork now, like the speed that I'm getting everything, not that she's going faster than anyone, but compared to my other artists, like I always tell people when I talk about this story, I feel like I was in an abusive relationship and I didn't want to leave, and I found every reason to stay, and then finally I escaped and found the right person in my life, and I'm like, wow, so this is how it's supposed to be. This is how it feels to be loved. Oh my goodness, So I'm very happy with the artwork that she's creating and everything, but now with the secondary spin-off book that I'm doing with Kenneth, I also have a visual of the style that I would like that to be, because the Kenneth thing is going to be a little bit more aggressive than the Element story. So I have an artist that's doing that with me, and I hope that it continues to build.
Dennis.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick on you for a minute because you are, I think, the only person in our group right now that's actually part. Your book is also part of another publishing company, like you and Nate, Future Dweller down here, and you guys have Slate Comics, right? So you have a bigger universe.
Mhm.
Now, Slate has a brand, right? It's like, to me, Slate is supernatural monsters and heroes. Okay.
Yep.
Like that's what Slate Comics is about, as far as the universe goes, what we've seen so far. When you started working on your artwork for Slate and bringing that to the universe, did you ever worry about your artwork style versus, say, Jack's or Nate's, or how they all complemented each other? Do you guys ever talk about the setting for the world and what that tone needs to be for your brand?
We would do a clean slate when we'd have these kind of brainstorm sessions. One of the things was I let them speak on the universe, and Nate was really good with communicating with me how these power sets are coming from, or the influences in their universe, the things behind the scenes that was world building and how they built their world. And then for me, it was just picking and choosing small parts of it that I would incorporate to the Celestial Knight. And then not only those little parts that were kind of like nuances that I would drop little hints in my story, but those were starting to become the backbones for issue 2 and 3 that I could go into more of his origin of why he got his powers. And it really was my character, because it's been with me for 35 years. The backbone was there, but it was putting names and faces to certain reasons why he was getting his powers. So if this person got his powers because of this is now something in Slate that was given to me by Nate and Jack when they would talk to me and be like, okay, this connects to my character through this. I like how you were going with, my art in their brand, because I do think my art works well with their brand. It's almost like a house style. I think with Nate, even with Jack, there's certain things that work as far as the grittiness of it. And even before you look at my book, my borders are all black. I love to do color pops and a lot of chaos. And it works well. If you look at Nate, it's all kinetic. And even the tone of Jack's book is dark. And that's what I really like. That's where I strive for. And that makes me feel comfortable. And if you look at the characters that I want to do, a lot of it's very, very dark. One of the things I was thinking about when you guys were talking was, what's the demographic? And this is almost like, as I listen to you guys talk about your stuff, like, okay, Jerry's brand is this, but is it demographic the manga, or is it the comic books? Cooley, I'm still wondering what your demographic is, because it's a comic book, but is it considered horror or supernatural? I know mine. I can sum it up in like 3 words. It's a superhero cloak book, cape book. Well, if you read my book, you know the difference between capes and cloaks. So it's a superhero cloak book. But as I go look around the panel, like, if you sum it up in 3 words, what is your brand? Chris, I'm assuming it would be like, it's D&D first, but is it D&D superhero, D&D adventure? Like, it's just interesting, like, what demographic did you go into, or what demographic came out of your brand,
Are you asking me directly?
I'm asking all of you guys.
Yeah.
I'll let Jerry Cooley talk first, because he's been quiet in the corner. So
yeah, I'll jump on this. Yeah, I've been trying to be a good boy tonight.
Don't be.
My stuff personally, it's and it wasn't on purpose, I mean, I didn't want to really jump into horror supernatural, but that's just where my story lives. I mean, when I first started jumping out with Kickstarter and everything, I said, hey, it's Sherlock Holmes meets, the series Supernatural. And I think that fits really good, and it's kind of evolved, I think, in some ways as the books went on. But I mean, it's really in this last issue, especially, I think it jumped more into the horror aspect, because I wanted to I didn't want to pinhole it into one thing. I wanted it to have little aspects of everything. That way I don't even know what the word is, but it's kind of like an actor when they get typecast. I didn't want to get typecast, I guess. I wanted to have little aspects of everything. And this story, I think, does that. As we're going along, most of you guys know I'm shooting for 11 to 12 issues just in this one arc. And well, I got the prequel coming out too with Matt Martin, and that's going to be just about all horror, with just a little flavor of supernatural, but mostly horror. And it's constantly evolving. I think it really is, and that's what I want. I think that when you have a really good story, I think it kind of dives into everything. There's something relatable there for everybody. There's a jumping on point for everybody if you have a really good story. That's just like Chris's book. I mean, man, when I jumped onto this thing, the humor is the one thing that grabbed me, and but there's a deep story there in the middle of all that. It's getting hinted at more and more as each book comes along, and
I find it funny when
I
people
love
say
that.
Crit has a deep
I love
story.
a good layered story.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I really do. I
You
wasn't
know
trying to
what
cut
I'm
you off.
saying.
I apologize. I've had a few people recently. I've asked for feedback on Crit, and I've gotten, oh, there's a deep story in there. It's really cool. And I'm like, it really started with me just trying to kill my friends. That's. But that's the joy that I have about tabletop storytelling is it really can go any direction, and it really
Right.
can. You have the campaigns where it goes murder hobos, and then you have campaigns where everything wants to screw everybody else, and I don't mean in a bad way. I mean like literally like bards everywhere having sex with everything you can imagine. And my campaign doesn't do that. There's the opportunity for it, like early on, very very early on, it was an opportunity for this thing just to be as weird as possible. And they all played true to themselves. And I'm very proud of where Crit went with the characters and how they developed the story around the setting that I created. But you had Dennis, you had said something about like my I guess audience that I'm looking for. And that's part of right there. Part of branding is knowing your audience, right? And I've always said my audience isn't the superhero. Well, I don't say always. When I first started down this path, I was like, oh, it's superheroes. And superheroes action adventure was where I was going with it, right? And in the past, I'd say 6 to 8 months, I've deviated away from superheroes because now with the MCU and DC, and honestly, even like the boys, right? Like you see superheroes as these omnipotent, very powerful beings that always fight some super evil, right? And while my story includes what you would say a superhero is, my guys don't embody the true superhero. They're adventurers with powers, and you're following them in each different piece. Like I don't have very many recurring villains. Actually, the only reason we have a couple recurring villains is because I really wanted that superhero element in the first place. And then they just kept killing them. So I'm like, I can't keep finding a way to bring these guys back without being cheap, like, Joker or something like that. So I've embraced that action adventure demographic. And that's what I'll be marketing to. And that's where I'll be going with it. I don't, we have many different elements in the storytelling, similar to you guys. I'll use Drew as a perfect example. You have sci-fi books, you have horror books, you have all these different things. But each individual book has its own demographic that you're going for. I want Crit to follow that action adventure, but be open enough to have, fans of other elements come in there. I'm a huge sci-fi fan. And those that don't know, Crit is mostly inspired by My Hero Academia, Mass Effect, Star Wars, and Warhammer 40K, which you never see Warhammer in there because Warhammer is like the most dark, horrific story ever written. And it just gets darker the more you read. I've been watching lots of videos on it lately. But those are what inspire it, and you wouldn't even know it. But I want to be able to get those fans and them be like, oh, even though I'm a huge fan of sci-fi, this is kind of cool. The action adventure group, and I'll mention what Jason said. His stuff isn't deep at all. He makes it up as he goes. I love Jason's stuff for the simple fact that, and I think everybody in this group is in the same age group. It reminds me of coming home on Saturday morning and watching my Saturday morning G.I. Joe fix or my Ninja Turtles fix. It's got a good mixture of both, and it doesn't shy away from it. You know, let me go through an alley and just beat the crap out of everyone possible and do the most insane things to them. And, you know, that's my character, and he owns it. You know, the first book, I'm going to have, you know, the supernatural with the werewolf and everything else, but everything's going to get murdered and massacred because that's what Convictor's about, and I love it. You know, even in Jerry, like your books, right? I could see fans of not just supernatural stuff, but a lot of like the Peaky Blinders, things like that, because it has that tone that flows through that very, I want to say vintage tone to it. You know, I've read everybody's books, so I've come up with my, and you know, because I market your books when I'm looking at retail too. So where does this fit? You know, we have the horror category. We've got now we've been blessed with sci-fi by Drew, which is something I really wanted to have, like a sci-fi element. And Jerry actually covers both sci-fi and manga, which is awesome. And then we got the Slate Boys coming in with your kind of like you're unique because you have heroes in a horrific kind of action adventure storytelling. Like Jack's book is like almost like a Jack the Ripper storyline with a hero, and then yours is like, hey, I have a awesome ass hero that's going to fight a kaiju. All right, you know, and Nate's doing something that we all still haven't seen yet because he's so close to the chest with his crap. But I'm privy to the script, and it reminds me of, you know, that supernatural action horror setting. So I think we have a lot of different grounds covered, and that's really what going into branding too. I wanted Savage Sandbox not just to be a home for superheroes or, you know, action stories or these things, or like one type of story. You know, when you go to certain publishers, and because I've checked out a lot of these indie publishers, not our level, bigger, you know, the bigger indies, they do kind of tend to have a lot of similar feel to them, which is cool, but I like diversity, and I like being able to go, hey, you like horror? Because fans these days don't like just one thing. They want like everything, right? So we have a little bit of everything here, and I think that's important to the Savage Sandbox brand by itself. And I mean, Drew has everything with his books except for superheroes. You don't have superhero books yet, do you?
No, I'm yet to tackle one of those. I got a script for one though, but I just, you know, I think you mentioned it before with like the MCU and the DC movies. Like when I first started with comics, you know, with all these movies out, I just felt like I couldn't bring anything to the table with a superhero book, so I kind of stuck with the sci-fi and horror genre.
I personally feel that there's superhero fatigue.
Yeah, I agree with that big time. Yeah.
I agree, and that's why 180%.
I had to share that. And to that point is because they've got, you know, Marvel has some great heroes and they have some great stories, but they're, you know, Disney just drives it all to the ground with let's have every single thing be connected, and then you're just, you know, there's a lot of talk out there about superhero fatigue.
You know, it's interesting, Chris. I've been thinking about that a lot because mine's as close to a superhero book as, you know, as I can kind of make it, and trying to get it distinguished from the typical superhero book that we've all grown up with. And what I've really been trying to lean on is because I'll be honest, it's a superhero book, it's a cape book, but what's it going to make it stand out from everyone else other than the aesthetics? The collectors, the real guys who read books, the ones who aren't into this modern age crap, are the ones that grew up in the 90s books, the kick-ass, you know, Image books. Those creators are what we want to be, right? We want to be we want to be those Image guys, and they were based on the creators and what they made, their art, their styles. That's us. So that's going to be us, or that's the way I envision us, right? So how's my book going to stand out from Marvel and DC? it's getting back to those cool stories and us being those cool creators that we grew up with. And there's so much nostalgia. And even being at the con or meeting other guys or talking about, the first thing they say to me is, this reminds me of the 90s book. Your art reminds me of McFarlane, or it reminds me of Jim Lee stuff. That's my only, like, where I'm kind of caught of, like, yeah, I'm sick of superhero books too. I don't buy anything modern anymore. All my stuff really is the classic stuff. But how am I going to make my superhero book stand out and not be one of those that's grouped in with that group? And it's something I'm still struggling with, but I think it's real interesting. And I know there's so many other guys who have Cape books that are trying to do the same thing. And it's tough. It's tough because the market is so bad with Cape books. And that's why indie books are doing so good, because they're just different stories and different topics and different branches. And that's really something I'm struggling with right now.
It's funny you said Cape books. So this is what I'm reading right now. It's,
nice.
So I started going through, like, clearly on my wall, you see all my Spawn stuff. I started going through all my old Spawn collection, and if you ask my wife, anybody that's around me long enough, if I see something and I'm interested in it, I just dive right into the wiki. I go into IMDb. I read. I want to know about the actors. I want to know about the writers. I want to know everything about it, because I want to know what humanizes everything I watch, right, or I take in. Because, especially knowing you guys and knowing the different elements that go into your storytelling, like Jerry and his team, Dennis and your story, Drew and Taj Mahal, like all these different things that go into the story. I love to know the background behind it. Like, when I talk about Crit, I can talk about our story. I would much rather tell you about what our story is based on and how it's about my friends trying not to die when I throw these monsters at them, and somehow they always beat them because, I'm a nice guy, and as a DM, I should probably kill them by now, but I've only killed a couple of them. So I love telling, like, those pieces. So I'm going through, and we're talking about Cape stories, and I have a rule in my universe: capes don't exist, because Brad says they make absolutely no sense. Like, they just don't. They make absolutely no sense. They're tactically, they're inferior. They can get caught on things. There's so many different reasons that in a tactical situation, and the T in Crit means what? Tactics, something like that. So we don't even use the term anymore. But I made the terminology, and I was like, I have to have an anagram for this, and now everyone just calls it Crit, not covert. Whatever. But anyway, so, like, when we're going to that, there's a rule: no capes. So I think later on I bring in a caped heroine, and it's this witch-like woman. We won't go into her yet, but I started reading this because I found out that some of the stuff I thought about Spawn is now incorrect. They fixed it, and that made me mad. So I'm going back and I'm reading, like, my 300 pages of this, but I'm not reading any of the newer stuff that's out because I'm burned out. I love Spawn because 300 issues in, I have the same story, right? I got burned out with X-Men. Now, mind you, you're talking about 90s. X-Men was my stuff, like Wolverine and Gambit. I wanted to be Wolverine and Gambit mixed together because I'm short, and I had, like, terrible luck with girls when I was young. And Gambit was this suave dude with this cool accent, and I'm like, man, I want to be him, but I'm short. So I'm like, if you take Wolverine and Gambit, mix them together, that's who I wanted to be.
That's crazy.
And then, like, I got away from comics for a few years. I graduated high school, and literally right out of high school, I was on tour. So, and if you know anything about The Starving Artist, which we all do clearly, as a musician, I was on $6 a day. I didn't have money for comic books.
Dennis, who's my commission piece of?
What?
Gambit.
Oh, that's awesome. So you can relate. Like, Gambit was the shit, dude. He was I love Gambit. But when I got back into it, now all of a sudden there's like 30 different storylines going on. Everything I knew was wrong. They rebooted everything. And that burned me out real quick. And even now, when you go in, you've got so many different, and Marvel was guilty of this even back in the 90s with so many different books, but it's only gotten worse. Yeah. And same with DC, like, how many times can we reboot the DC universe before we get tired of seeing Batman's parents die? right?
And I always feel that's the indies like hands up on everything else, is that you can pick up an indie book and follow it hopefully to the end. Like you said, one of the bad things on the indie side is that people don't finish their book. You know, they get maybe 1, 2, or maybe even 3 books in, and then it's done. You know, now it's like, even if I wanted to tell my kids, like, yeah, I love Batman, I love Superman, it was like, oh, can we read the books about them? Which one? Like, unfortunately, there's hundreds of versions of them. So just close your eyes and pick a random one, you know, or you could pick up an indie book and it's like, yo, here's the beginning. Each issue comes out every few months or something, and you can actually follow that storyline to the end. And that's always been like a big thing of mine. It's less confusing for me, you know, with everything.
That's another thing. And this isn't towards Drew, because I know you have like 30 different titles out there. I make fun of you for it. But at least the titles that you like, your main titles, you're consistent with. You know, your Caspian Porter, you're on book 3. I know people that have 6 different issue 1s for 6 different stories. And me as a reader, I want to read this group, right? I was introduced, and luckily Nick is really good about having multiple stories going on at the same time because he has a creative team. I think having a creative team helps. But if you're breaking into the story and you've got 6 different teams with 6 different issue 1s, well, we've just spent 2 years learning about the base. You know, readers themselves, most people want, like, because of Netflix and everything else, we want a lot. Yeah. So give me like 2 or 3 issues before you bring something else in. But again, that's their brand, not mine. You know, I'm gonna speak to that real quick because I see all these people with different books, like Drew, right? You have different titles, and in Slate Comics, because you have a group of people, you have multiple titles now under the same banner. Forever, there's only been Crit under Homebrewed, and I was like, how do I introduce a new story? Because we have, you know, different campaigns we played. How can I bring these to life without distracting people from Crit? And that's why I made Mr. Wizard and Friends part of the Crit universe as a TV show, because I can piggyback. I don't have to divert people's attention from Crit, but I can still tell this fun story about, you know, essentially gods have taken over with social media, and their entire mission is to, you know, make people unfollow them on Instagram is pretty much the storyline, and do so by, you know, ruining their parties and making people hate them. That's what they're doing. So I take that, and, you know, we're talking about the brand and the image of what I wanted. I always want a cartoon feel because I grew up in the 90s. I think we can all say that 90s X-Men, 90s Batman, and 90s Spider-Man. I'm going to nix 90s Superman because it's the same art style as 90s Batman. But all those cartoons are the best. And I still watch Wildcats to this day. I have it on Amazon Prime. Love that cartoon. And I want my stuff to be like that. I want to be able to see it in 20 years and have that same feeling of cartoons, and which is why I really like the fact that I was able to get Robert to jump in on that, because Homebrewed always has to have a cartoon, like, cinematic feel. I want that for my brand. You know, I want my audience to know, oh, what's up, Dan? I want my audience to know when they pick up a Crit title or a Homebrewed title or something within our universe, it's going to fit into that Saturday morning cartoon time. That's what I really want you guys to feel, with the comedic value of it and the action in it. You walk away feeling like I just watched a cool cartoon is what I want, with a little blood. I fixed the cursing. I downloaded a font now that allows you to curse, and it fixes all the letters for you. So
nice.
Yeah.
You know what I want?
The book, and I'm like, I don't want cursing because I have a 12-year-old daughter that reads the books. And so I found a font. It's called Potty Mouth, for all of you out there that self-censor. Nice. I was self-censoring and I hated it. So I just got Potty Mouth, and I write the word fuck, and then I put the Potty Mouth in there, and it fixes it for me.
Nice. Genius.
You know what I would like for my book? Like, the same thing that we see every day when it comes to, like, watching Dragon Ball Z or watching Ninja Turtles. To hear people have that conversation, yo, Pyro's the best character.
Nah, man. Hydra's the best character. What are you talking about? Shock is the best character. You see how fast he is? Nah, there's no way. Look at what Sky can do. Like, to have people make that debate because of like their personality, like you hear them talk about like Ninja Turtles. I love Michelangelo because he's the funny one. Oh, but Raphael is serious and gangster. And Leonardo, yeah, but he's the leader. But Donatello's, super intelligent. And then you have those people that was like, Master Splinter's the best of the best. So it doesn't matter who y'all pick. So hearing people have that conversation, hearing people have that conversation about my book is something that I look forward to. So
what about you, Dennis? Since we're talking about like with our brand, what impression we want to give our readers.
Again, I'm struggling so much with this, but I just keep going back to one thing, and Cooley mentioned it earlier. I think we had a Phalanx where we talked about relatability, and I've been rethinking about that because I think I'll change my view from that Phalanx that it's not about being relatable anymore. I think one of the things I loved about comics was I couldn't relate. I wanted to be those guys, but I couldn't relate to them because they were super powered. But I still love them. And why did I love them? Because the story was fantastic. And I think that's what I keep trying to go back to. And that's why, like, using an editor or even getting your opinions, when I share the ideas with you guys, it's really just having that great story or hoping I'm making a compelling story. And even going with that whole cape thing and superhero things, how is it going to stand out? Great story. Like, if I can just make sure I can really do something that's compelling, doesn't have to be relatable, but it is just something that's really cool when they read it. That's all I can fall back on. I want to say this when we're talking about the branding part of it. It's funny because when I've pitched my book and when I talk about my character and my brand, I caught myself as soon as I talk about, and when you guys are going to be at your con, when we're all together at the con, you pitch your brand, I automatically would go right into SSB branding. Every single time. It was like, this is my character, been with me 35 years. It's about a boy named Jeremy and his dog and how they get powers, how they come to term their powers, and they fight a kaiju in Times Square. I'm part of the SSB. My group is a group of 9. I am number 7 of 9. Great bunch of guys. We have distribution through Savage Sandbox. We have a book for every single genre. I got a manga guy.
You're number 7 of 9?
Yeah, man. I consider
he's like Star Trek,
9.
except he doesn't have the chest.
Yeah. But I started putting myself, like, as people put out books, like I fell into this number, this number of the creators who get books out, and that's kind of where I fell into 7. I'm probably somewhere, who knows where, but at least my the branding part, the SSB became part of the branding in my pitch of being like, I got a horror guy, I got a manga guy, I got a D&D guy, we got a guy who does excessive violence. Like, it's actually part of my pitch now when I talk about Celestial Knight. I just think it's really cool that the brand, at least for me right now, the brand isn't solely Celestial Knight, it's SSB. And then as I evolve, I'm sure hopefully, it'll become a bigger thing when I'm talking about Celestial Knight, but I think it really sells not just me, but it sells the legitimacy of the character and the book and what we're doing. And one of the things that was great was when I talked about the SSB, I could actually show them the cards and be like, this is my group right here. These are my cards, my Celestial Knight cards. If you read the back, you'll see a bunch of the guys that are part of this group. Follow them and kind of create that brand awareness also through that also.
We need SSB cards where we all have like just the cover, like a cover piece, and then the creator on the back. That would be freaking cool.
Genius.
That would be badass.
Jerry, Cooley. So with yours, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. It's Sunday night, so we'll try and bounce it off here in about 10 minutes. I'm gonna do a round table since everybody's kind of on this about how you pitch your title. We've had Jerry's pitch, like things that he wants people to relate to his title, what he wants his audience to react. When when people read End of Days, what kind of reaction are you looking for? Like, what's your dream reaction out of your book?
Man, I never really thought about that, honestly. I mean, I've just like most of the guys in here, I've been sitting on this thing since high school, and we can all look at me and tell that's been a good while. I've been sitting on this story for well over 20 years, and I've never really thought about that. I've only just thought about the story, the characters, and in my head, I just like most of you, you get lost in that, and you think everybody, you know, ought to know more than they do because you've been building this history for these characters in your head for over 20 something years. And it's fun to really to finally sit down and kind of flesh it out and actually put it out there. I just want somebody when they come into my books, I want them to have just a totally unique experience away from the mainstream. I want to be a alternate kind of thing. I want my story, the story itself, maybe not just. Let me back up. I was going to say not character based, but it is strongly character based. But the story just wraps up all of that. It when you dive into Gabriel, you can't have this story if you take one of these characters away. And we're constantly introduced, more characters as this story goes on. It gets deeper and there's a lot that you can go back to. It's very layered. I mean, just like in issue 2, I brought in John the Revelator, which is John from the original one of the 12 disciples that he's immortal, and he started the Knights Templar, and you carry on through all that. I mean, it's crazy. You take one character away and the story doesn't work. So I know
Cooley,
that was just
every
a
time,
kind of crazy rant, but
Cooley,
go
every
ahead,
time I hear
Jerry.
you talk about your book, you know what I imagine? And
What's that?
I'm not making fun, like it's legit. I see it like a fan base that like every month they gotta get together to talk about the new issue. Like when I hear you talk about it, especially when you bring in angels and things like that, there's obviously like a deep story. So I see like people getting together and go,
Right.
what do you think this issue was about? What do you think this person, this character meant when he said this and that? Like a book club.
Right.
Every time I hear you talk about it, that's how deep you make it sound. So I don't know if
It's
that's the same way
extremely
you see it, but
deep, man.
that's exactly how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said earlier, I've got all this history built in my head. And, 12 issues, I hope that'll kind of put a good foundation out there. If it does, hey, I'll go 14, I'll go 15. It's just whatever it takes. I'm letting the story dictate everything. I'm loving where it's going. And I'm getting a lot of good feedback from folks that are really digging what I'm trying to do. And it's just growing, they're getting a good story and they're enjoying it. That's all I want at the end of the day, but I've got to get this thing out of my head at the end of the day. I've got to do that. I want other people to enjoy this thing. I mean, that's why we do this. It's a passion, it's a lifelong dream with all of us. And we just want a story told, whatever it may be. And that's where I'm going with mine. Just getting it out there and hoping to God folks enjoy it.
What about you, Drew? What kind of reactions do you look for in your book? Like what excites you when people say it?
I would say for the first few years, I never really put much thought into that. I was really just hammering out comic book ideas I had in my head, and I felt like I needed to tell a story. But when it really came to like Caspian Porter, I really wanted to go for that 1950s sci-fi element, like the Flash Gordon serials or Lost in Space, something that each episode that ended at a cliffhanger or something like that. But that's really where I wanted to go with this story. I really think I nailed it. I think maybe with a little bit of a modern flair to it, but I'm really enjoying the way it's going. I like how I have each issue ending at a cliffhanger, and I just I love doing this, and I can't wait to show the next few issues to you guys.
I'll close it out. So, Crit, to me, when I first started, kind of like Dennis, I wanted that feeling that I had in the 80s and 90s when superheroes were super, but they weren't omnipotent. Okay. You didn't have Iceman with the ability to literally like freeze the molecules in your blood and kill you, right? I wanted my characters to get there, but when I thought of using Dungeons and Dragons to tell a story about superheroes, in my head, I was like, well, you know, the characters in Dungeons and Dragons, you take a cleric, right? Or any of these magic wielders in Dungeons and Dragons, they are superheroes. You know why they're not super? Is because everybody in their world has those powers.
Yeah.
Okay. Like everybody can heal someone or throw a fireball or do all these things. What makes superheroes super is nobody else can do that. So I thought about that for a bit and I said, well, remember when Superman couldn't fly? He could only jump, you know? When Batman actually did use guns and had no problem killing people. That time period where you got to see the characters evolve. And, you know, I'm going on 40 this year. I know this is the only group of friends I have where I'm actually not the oldest one in the group. I feel great. But I get to look back at those times when I saw hero, like look at the initial X-Men team and Iceman being a snowball, right? Like that was my inspiration was I want my characters to be able to grow over time and you see their new abilities. And I love Spectre is one of those characters I can do that a lot with because he's a spellcaster. So he gets a lot of different spells over time and you see him do different things like, you know, teleporting in book 3 or, you know, the big fireballs that he gets to do or pulling up fire out of the floor or the different animals he gets, like the evolution of that character instead of, here's my character, he's super, and that's what you get. And I want readers, like, I get this sometimes too, which is really cool when somebody says, oh, that new thing that he can do, he can teleport now. That's really cool. I was in an interview once and they were reading and they read the first couple books and they were like, oh, that's really cool that he can teleport, like that ability. And that's what excites me when readers can pick up on the fact that my characters evolve and kind of grow. And taking into that, you know, I've talked about a few times, you know, my superpower, right? Because I don't get a character probably until I think it's like book 12 or 13, my character comes in. And you know what's funny? Dennis, you're going to love this. His name is Seven. His name is Seven. He is 7 of 12, though. We'll go more into why he's 7 of 12 later on. For those of you that know, you know. But he is 7 of 12. He's a guy in a suit. He is relatively short. They make fun of him for being short all the time. And he works out a lot. And he's like the tech guy. And he's always helping the team out. And he pretty much funds the team. I don't know where I got all those superpowers from, but that's my ability. I have limitless money and technology for my team. But you know, when people ask me what do you do in the book, well, my superpower is the art. You know. And I'm really excited in the next book where I get to level up again, and now I'm coloring the book, right? So that's cool. Like people get to see that, and I love those kind of things when people come to me and say, "Hey, like Dan's in the comments," and I talk to Dan, and I love when Dan says, "Man, like your art from book 1 to now book 5 is just, you know, so awesome." Like seeing the evolution.
An anime,
right? If you and I talk about this a few times, and I know I'm repeating myself, but when I think about the idea of going back and redrawing book 1 and my team reminds me One Punch Man sucked when it first came out. The artwork was garbage and look at it now, it's amazing. And I want to be that.
It still sucks, but continue.
What's that?
It still sucks, but continue.
But like, I want to be that. I want to be able to allow people to watch the growth of the book and the growth of the team behind it. You know, with every book being better than the last, I think that speaks for itself. And that's what I like to hear. You know, you might like Caliber. I mean, everybody likes Samedi because you can't go wrong with a drunk cat that smokes cigars and talks shit to everybody. Like, you really can't, right? Everybody loves Samedi. But when they, like, you pick a character you like, cool, you like Boulder, you like Spectre, you like Caliber, that's cool. I like the fact that everybody likes that the story gets better every book because that's hard to do. That's hard to get people to come back. And there's all like, I remember when I released book 2, I'm like, am I going to have that punch that I had at the end of book 1? You know, when I did book 4, I was like, the action in here doesn't match book 3, or people don't like that. And when book 5 was, dude, I stressed myself out every day working on book 5 because I wanted to be as impactful as those first 4 books. And so when people come to me and they say, hey, I enjoyed this story and it was better than the last one, or like you continue to grow, that's what I want to hear. And that's why I continue to grow that brand. You know, not just the book, but the Kickstarters too. When people come to my Kickstarter and say, oh man, Chris upped his game again. You guys joke around about that. But every time I do something, I'm like, crap, I got to do something better than I did last time now. Everybody expects me to up myself. So I'm doing energy drinks next time, custom energy drinks, working on some custom coffee. I got caffeinated chaos coming. I got to do it. But, you know, the caliber figures, when you guys build those, I put a lot of work and determination into making sure that shit was good because I wanted to punch 50 people in the face for that one.
Those look awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, they are, but the company that designed it didn't even deliver a 3D file that I could use. I had to pay somebody else to fix their file and then print. Man,
Oh, wow.
Oh,
I've never blasted a company for being a pile of shit, but I was on every forum that mentioned them with the same paragraph of how terrible a fucking company they are. Anyway, but that's what I want to be. I want to be the guy that takes it to a new level every time. I want to continue that. And it's funny because you guys remind me of my high school friends, because every time we went out to a concert, they were like, you got to do something crazier than more stupid than last time. And I was always drunk at them. So I was always doing something real stupid. So at least now I'm doing stuff better. And, I'm put myself in a healthy way. But it's 8:30. I know, Drew, you got to bounce off.
Yep.
And I feel like we've accomplished quite a bit on this Phalanx. We've got some good branding in there, some good information for people to take to the table. Is there anything anybody wants to say before we do the sign off for the night? Nothing to add, nothing to contribute. I think we all kind of like splurged out all of our information for the night.
Keep working on your stuff. Once again, thank you, Chris, for giving me the feedback on on my script. You know, sometimes we're all doing so much that sometimes someone needs to pull you back and be like, yo, I think you should look this over and fix that. And Dennis, I read your book last night, and I remember you talking about how brutal your editor was to you.
Yeah.
And it obviously did you justice. It worked out very well for you. So,
Thank you, man.
That's what I'm looking for down the line. If anybody has any advice, as the SSB, don't be afraid to be like, hey, what'd you think about doing something like this? Or, anything like that. Maybe it might have been something I missed, because like I said, I'm always trying to, evolve. The fact that I'm not physically doing my own artwork, I gotta put in more effort in other areas, and I just want to make sure that I don't miss anything. So, keep doing that. Keep trying to improve yourselves.
Talking to you about that was one of the more hard things I've had to do, because I respect everybody in the group, and you didn't physically ask me for any feedback, so I was holding back. A topic of conversation is I'm lettering Jerry's book. I'm lettering his 3rd book. He's already well into this book, and we should be done soon. And we were having a conversation about the story, and I just said, Jerry, a few of these things don't make sense. They don't line up to me. Storytelling wise, it doesn't hit me as hard as some other things you've done. And we exchanged some ideas, and now I've got the new script, and I'm going to start lettering that. If I have any feedback, I'll put it in there. But it's, from what I've read so far, it's much better than what it had before, so that's awesome. And I want everybody to be able to do that. Dennis, again, editing wise, I love your book. Your editor definitely kicked your nuts in, and that was great because it shows in the writing. But you guys, Drew and Jerry Cooley, Drew, you've got a Kickstarter, right?
Yep. I got Caspian 3 about 3 days into the campaign so far. Yep.
Nice.
All right. So where can people find it? and tell us a little bit about that before you jump off, because that's important.
Yeah, sure. So issue 3 of Caspian Porter picks up right where issue 2 left off. The character is running into a situation where he finds some pirates of Mars taking apart his spaceship, and he kind of goes ballistic. So you're going to see about 7 or 8 pages of an action sequence, and it's going to be a pretty cool issue. So it's out on Kickstarter right now. I'm about 70% funded, 26 days to go. So there's plenty of time to get in on this. And I'm going to start stretch goals at about 1,500. So I'll announce those here pretty soon.
I thought I backed this already. Apparently I didn't back this. How did I not back this yet? Okay, well, that's going to get fixed right now. I'm going to put this in the comments for everybody.
Thank you.
For some reason, I really thought I did. My bad on that. But yeah, so you can hit up the comments here for Caspian Porter Part 3. Awesome sci-fi story. Mr. Cooley, do you have anything going on soon that you want to shout out?
Yeah, waiting on my book End of Days Chapter 3 to get in from the printers. As soon as that happens, I'll start sending all that out, and working on Ballad of the Damned right now with Matt Martin doing the art on that. So really excited about that, and yeah, hopefully making an announcement here in the next few weeks about when they hit in Kickstarter. So there we go.
Sweet. Nice. I just backed the Valencia. I swear I backed the Valencia cover before. I must not have hit the confirm button. Nice. Every time Dennis or Mo do a cover, I always back that.
Same.
Piece.
I gotta say, Dennis, your cover is like my most popular option here, man.
Woo!
It is. Awesome cover.
So going into brand, right? Like I said that for a reason. You and Mo, I always back your covers because I love the artwork, right? So just like one of the reasons I started getting Robert Nix on all my covers, because I love how his artwork, matches my brand. But Robert Nix has a brand of his own. You guys have a brand of your own. So it's really awesome that your people, like, it shows Dennis, like people backing just the Dennis cover for a reason.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
That's awesome.
Jerry, you got Jerry E4 Comics. Do you have anything that you want to shout out before we call tonight?
First, I would like to say thank you to everybody for backing my last Kickstarter. With everyone, giving a book for CB4K, I was able to send over about 90 books to, comic books for kids. So I'm very happy and pleased about that. I'm looking forward to doing it on pretty much all my Kickstarters moving forward. Like Chris said, issue 3 is pretty much almost completely done. I'm already into issue 4, getting that done as the artwork's done as we speak. I'm also working on the Kenneth book as well, which is where I'm right now. I'm in the stage of creating the new characters that's going to be in this story. So I have that in line. I have the artist in line. So right now, just character building. I haven't decided when or what I will be putting in this next Kickstarter. I'm looking at maybe late August or maybe September to launch the second one if I do, and which might include 2 or 3 books. So look out for that.
Nice.
Dennis.
Just, fulfillment was last week. Everyone should be at least getting the rest of their packages in the next couple of days. I've been getting a good amount of good reviews. People just DMing me on the side, telling me how much they love it. I'm going to post 1 or 2 here just to, on Instagram the next week or so, just to see if I can drum up a little bit more business. And as of a few days ago, started issue 2. Just got the first page down, and it's feeling like a movie, man. I'm writing like a Netflix script. It's great. It feels good.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, look out for all that stuff. And my updates before I jump off, I have everything ready to fulfill for the Kickstarter except for the books. But they're at the printer, and I'm expecting an update from him soon. I will say I'm expecting a little bit of a longer process, only because we have a graphic novel in there, and it's 212 pages long. So I know that takes a little bit more time to prepare before we go to print. So as soon as that goes to print, I should have those within a week, and I'll get those out. So I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks I'll have these books ready to ship. I haven't had any. He hasn't kicked them back to me yet, so that's good. That means that we're looking good. I spent like an entire week formatting, so hopefully I got it right. So update on that. Those should be out soon. I'm looking at August 31st or September 7th for crit number 6. Caffeinated Chaos. They make coffee and fight robots. Nothing better than that. So look out for that soon. I will not be advertising until I ship the books, though. That's just my brand. So, guys, thank you for jumping in. Everybody for the contributions, and I love everybody in the comments. Thank you so much, Jason, for popping in and saying what's up, even though you had a birthday party. That was freaking great. And gentlemen, I will see you in our chat. Everybody else, make sure you check us out on Instagram. If you're, that's my tag on Instagram. We all have, you can check out the Savage Sandbox. We're all linked in there as well. And everybody have a great Sunday night, and we'll talk to you later.
Peace.
See ya.